Welcome to another GibbsCAM video. Today we're going to show you some unique tool paths with not only the volume mill solids, but with advanced 3D and the 5-axis module in 3-axis mode, and a few other tool paths as well. So the first thing I want to show you, of course, is my part here. This is kind of a surfacing part with a couple of islands on here. And if I use volume mill solids, which I'm going to use, you basically just click on the whole solid and you can say do it and it'll do the toolpath. So the first thing I'm going to do is let me bring up my volume mill toolpath. You can see fill in your speeds and feeds, things like this. You can use the technology expert to figure all that out, which works very well. And the desired Z step I want to do is 800 thou. So if I do that and I cut part render, let's take a look and see what that's going to do. And you can see it took about 800 thou steps there, at least this step here, and then it kind of cleaned up here. And the reason it cleaned up here is because I have hit flats after adding passes. So it went down because it was an inch depth from the top to here. So 800 thou, it's going to do that, then it's going to hit the flats. But ideally this is not the best because when the ball end mill comes back, it has too large of a wall there to use the ball end mill. You would have a difficult time machining that. On the solids tab, I also told it to leave 20 thou stock on everything. That's all the surface stock since this is a solid. But I want to clean this up a little bit so it's a better tool path for the ball end mill. So I'm going to click on this solids tab, of course. I'm going to leave the 20 thou stock in there. And I'm going to hit the button that says wall cleanup desired step 100 thou. So let's turn this off and redo that. And you can see it processing down here. It's a pretty fast process. Now I have the tool path for that I want. So let's take a look. We'll rewind and we'll play. And you can see, told it to climb mill. And there's my 800 thou. It's going to clean that up. It's going to hit the flats. And then it's going to reduce the step by 100 thou to clean up the large walls on there. So I have a 100 thou step everywhere on the part. So if we let this finish out, you'll see now that I have a good tool path for the ball end mill to come in and take a finish pass. Ideally, I'd do probably a semi-finish with a ball end mill than a finish, but once you see the ball end mill, you'll understand that you could just change the step over and how much stock you're going to leave for the final pass. So the next operation we're going to show you is the advanced 3D. Let's bring that up. So this I'm just doing, let me bring up the process here. And I'm just doing the surfacing here, constant step over, of course your speeds and feeds, step over 30 thou there. And I'm just telling it to go 3 inches deep. Really don't need to do that. I could just say -1, and we'll just say 1/4. It's not going to go past that. On the mill feature, I'm just leaving these default. Options tab, leave pretty much everything default here except for the point reduction. I want it to do arcs if it can, so it's going to find that, remove any spikes. Entry and exit, I'm going to leave these default up here. Minimize trimming is usually what I have on, and then minimal vertical when it retracts on here. And of course the boundary, I'm having it go on, and a little bit of offset past the edges here by another 30 thou. And as far as trim to feature, right now I have fixture clearance 30 thou, but we don't have any fixtures on here. So let's run that toolpath. I'm going to run the volume mill as well as the advanced 3D. So let's replay that and start from scratch. And here's the volume mill 3D. It's going to clean that up. And then you can see the ball end mill is going to go and clean up this area here. Basically, I'm telling it to start from the inside and go out. So the next operation I want to do is, of course, I want to come around here and clean up these two islands here. So if I replay this, I'm just going to tell it to stop on operation number 5. So I'll say stop before operation number 5. So we'll speed this up a little bit. So there's our roughing, then our ball end mill to finish. So now we're going to do the intersections here. So you can see it's going to come in and do the intersections here. We're actually using the 5-axis module to do the intersections, but then we'll show you this in a minute. But as you can see, speed this up a little bit here. And you can see it didn't quite clean up the 2 islands. That's because the surfacing that we did previously, we didn't tell it to stay away from the 2 islands, so it cut them to size. And then when we came around to do the intersections, you can see it left some material. Well, it's actually to size, but it wouldn't leave a very good finish here doing the ball end mill cut and then coming back and trying to cut this and leave a nice surface. So what we want to do is we want to tell Gibbs to leave some material on the 2 islands before we come back and take the intersections. So I'm going to bring up this process again, which is our surfacing process here. And I'm going to, everything else is the same here. But on the boundary here, I have fixture clearance 30 thou. Of course, we don't have any fixtures up on this here. We just have the vise here. But there is some tabs over here. If I turn on balloons and hover over here, you can see this is part. So this is the normal default is your part there when you click on it. Then you have one called constraint button, and stock button. So we want to use the constraint button. So I'm going to turn that off, the notes there. I'm going to click on that, make sure face selection is on. And I'm going to say I want to make this a constraint as well as that, and this as well as that. No need to do it here because the end mill is going to leave material on these 2, which will leave material on the radiuses as well. So I'm going to click on redo, and you can see the toolpath calculating right here. And now we have our toolpath, and you can see it's staying away from those islands. So again, let's do the rendering. We'll select these 3 processes, operations. Let's play. And here's our ball end mill. You can see it's staying away from the islands, the 30 thou that we told it to. All right, now we'll slow it down a little bit, and now we're going to do the intersections here. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to come in, it's going to ramp in. And I told it to do multiple steps. We'll show you that in a minute. But now you can see it's going to clean up the islands. And leave us a very nice finish on that part. So let's show you the intersections here. Of course, that's the advanced 3D. Let me bring that over. So here, just general XY plane, surface paths. I'm going to just do a wireframe and 2-axis profile. And compensation cutting side left. You can see all the information here on it. One-way climb, tool axis control. And do 3-axis. And of course, Gouge Check. I usually have Gouge Check on. We'll turn that on. Leave that there the same. Link, I usually do a lead in, lead out. No roughing, no utility. So let's redo that toolpath there. And you'll see the results from that. And here's our toolpath. You can see I'm stepping in a number of times. You can tell it how many times you'd like it to step in. That's totally up to you. So now if we run this again, and we'll slow it down. There's our spiral. And clean up the toolpath. Now we'll show you a couple other toolpaths on the Geodesic and not using Geodesic. So on this toolpath, we're in the 5-axis mode, but in 3-axis toolpath. So I just have the general here, surface paths. As surfaces, just parallel cuts, 90 degree here, taking it right to size. Tool axis control, 3-axis again. Now on the Gouge Check here, you can see I have 2 buttons selected here. The first one, check all the drive surfaces. Then on the second one, I am giving it some constraints, and the constraints are going to be these islands here. So I uncheck the drive surfaces and I click the button that says check surfaces. We're going to leave the track tool along tool axis the same as before, but then it's going to give me the 3 dots, which is basically saying, okay, select the constraints you want to do. So I selected the top and the side, and of course the fillet, same on both of them, and of course they'll turn a different color, and there you can see what I selected there. And then stock to leave, I said leave 30 thou stock, and I gave it kind of a tolerance there. So now if we run the rendering again, so we're going to choose the volume mill, end mill toolpath, and then the 5-axis module and 3-axis mode, and then of course intersections. So let's run this again. And there's our 5-axis mode in 3-axis toolpath. Nice toolpath as well. Cleans up very nicely. Now you can see it left stock on the 2 islands, which is exactly what we wanted to do. So now let's go back to do the intersections, same as before. Didn't really change that. You can see that cleans up very nice, and that one cleans up very nice. So the last toolpath we're going to show you is the Geodesic. So let's bring that up. 5-axis module and 3-axis mode. Here's my 3-axis toolpath. Geodesic machining, tool center mode, machining surfaces, and parallel to multiple curves, and zigzag. Most of these are default here. Put my step over here. Of course, 3-axis mode. Gouge check on. Since I'm not roughing, but finishing the toolpath here with the ball end mill. Of course, I'm going to leave the islands as well. 30 thou stock on here for the end mill to come back and clean up the intersections. On the link, lead in, lead out. Nothing on roughing, nothing on utility there. And you can see the toolpath we have there. So let's run the rendering and you can see what the toolpath will do here. So we're going to run these 3 operations only. So we'll rewind, click play. And on the Geodesic, we're basically starting from the outside and going in and cleaning around the islands as well. And of course the intersections, as you can see here. And we also have a nice toolpath there and a nice finished part on there. So a lot of different things you can do with the 5-axis mode and 3-axis mode. as well as the Advanced 3D, some unique toolpaths with that one as well. On this one, I think I prefer the Advanced 3D for the toolpath there. So each has its capabilities and plus or minuses with each different toolpath. But get used to using this constraint and select what you want to constrain when you're doing surfacing with islands and things that you want to avoid. This will help quite a bit. So thank you for watching.